Hello everyone and welcome to the December 4th Budget Committee meeting. Everyone would rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I am Stacy Dion. I am the chair of Budget Committee. What are you guys? John Framberg. Mark, can you state your name, please?
Mark Goddard, 28 Ball Road.
Martha Jakewith, 16 Rhinus Lane.
Tom Rowling.
Paula Mahoney.
Pam Brown.
Trish Tidd.
Chuck Hart.
Thank you, everyone. Did everyone get a copy of the minutes that were sent out by Cindy? Any questions or comments? Yep.
I just kind of felt it was a little kludgy at the beginning of the minutes when we were discussing the fact that we had needed to complete a vote on a prior issue from a prior meeting.
Okay.
And I couldn't even think how to rephrase that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. So the issue was that we hadn't taken a vote on the bringing something to the select board. So what we could state was that prior to the approval of minutes, the chair or Stacy brought up that we hadn't taken a previous vote and that we would take the vote and then we could go to approval of minutes.
Perfect.
Okay, so is that your motion to amend the minutes as stated? Yes. Is there a second?
Yes, sir.
Mark did the second. Claudine. All those in favor of approving the minutes as amended? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Nope. All right. We're all set. The next order of business is the CIP update. Barbara could not be here tonight. Everyone received the CIP. I know that it's been approved by the planning board and it was discussed on Monday night at the select board. Are there any questions or concerns at this time?
I attended the select board meeting. I didn't notice that if they had actually prioritized the items in the CIP for this budget cycle. So maybe Chuck could enlighten us. I know they had discussed it, but very briefly.
Yeah, a lot of it we can't, a lot of the items, especially from the buildings and grounds and the highway department, until they decide if it's going to be a warrant article or not. The items are there, the amounts are there, and you know they will change if it's a warrant article. The preambulation, 20,000 is the preambulation was done, which we found out. So I don't know, and we're still looking into Tom and Lisa. Others that may have been done and not just signed and processed. So that amount of money is not necessarily have to be put in anybody's budget. The other things are what they are there. The only other, in the vehicle replacement is the placeholder. And again, Tom may even be able to say, well, if you're going to do anything with the truck, that would be the warrant article that money would be used for. The master plan is going to be master plan is $60,000. and we're gonna do 30,000 this year, which is what you guys decided, and then put the other 30,000 on for next year. Again, open space preservation, there is no call for any kind of, they're not gonna be looking for any money this year on that, so again, that's a placeholder.
Was somebody gonna request whether or not the CIP could be revised?
Well, that's what I asked that kind of question too, is can we move
Because
these?
on Monday night, I
Yeah.
thought somebody was gonna go back to Glenn and ask if we could revise the CIP based on a few things that have come out since the approval of it.
Well, that would be me,
Yeah,
and I'm gonna do it Thursday, because he's not in. you see.
okay,
Wow, did I cover myself there?
yeah.
But yeah, so that was the discussion. I mean, the $20,000 doesn't completely come off of it, and it redoes it for going on, and, you know, if warrant articles come in for the other items, you know, where do they go? This may be just the fact is that it's written for currently for this year and this year's budget, and the facts and the information stay there. I don't know, but I will most assuredly find out.
And this is just a guidance, and it's not mandatory, it's not something, it's just to help us with budgeting for the future and to make sure it's kind of spaced out over a couple of years. And right now, it's,
My experience with this stuff is that its real purpose is to qualify you for funding from the state and federal government. That's really why you need to put it together.
The other,
Do we ever really use it?
so in,
In reality,
at budget committee,
yes.
this is the first year we've received it during the budget cycle. Last year, it wasn't approved until February. And the year before, I think it was even later than that. So it's supposed to help us with long-term budgeting. So if you like look at the totals needs to be, and this is the wording from the CIP, is the total needed to be raised by taxes this year is an additional $400,000 about on top of our budget. Next year, if we followed that plan, it would be 1.4 million to be an additional 1.4 million if we were funding everything that was being requested for next year.
So is the 400,000 in this budget?
No, it's warrant articles that go on top of the budget.
So are they
An
gonna be?
additional, we
don't
don't know.
most of them are under with buildings and facilities, so.
Well, as we review the current budget, we can ask the DPW if they are planning on putting in, what they're planning on putting in for warrant articles.
I think the other one thing that came up was how it came about, we don't know, but we had work in to upgrade the electrical at the plane.
Planes.
And originally we had a price for $9,000, then it went to $12,000. Then in reality, we just got an updated proposal, and it's $33,000, even with the town doing the trenching. So that was discussed, and I believe that was approved to be used through the infrastructure fund, rather than trying to budget it, or warrant article could be iffy, and the bottom line is, if we don't do it, chances are that we wouldn't be able to use any electrical there. I mean, they've been nice over the last couple of years to approve it, but it's in such bad shape that they probably won't be able to.
Who's been nice enough to approve it?
Well, the town has kind of had it inspected and gone through it and
Okay,
made sure it's safe, but one of these days, even if it's the town, they can't come along and
So
say it's safe.
who has control of the infrastructure fund?
The select board.
We do, yeah.
Okay. And what's the balance of that? We know, it's okay if you don't know off the top of your head.
4 million.
Yep, 4,127,000.
So that's cash held somewhere?
That's in the trust fund.
You got it.
Yep.
You have it.
You,
So the answer to the question that was asked 60 seconds ago is the trustees have that.
Yes.
the trustees have it and it can be expended going
Like
through
the
the,
select,
yep.
so you might want to tell the trustees that think of, you only want like 100, you're not gonna want a large amount of money, just $100,000 or something.
Well, for this particular project, it's 33,000.
So my suggestion is if selectmen are thinking about stuff like that, to let the trustees know, because you don't wanna ask for money and have them be forced to sell investments in an inopportune time. You would be wanting $200,000. We'd talk to the investment advisors and have them begin to look around and strategically set that money aside and put it in a money market fund or in a 3-month treasury bill.
So, Paul, I'm gonna put you back. I would assume that at some point, I don't know when that point would be, you would be sending a note over to the trustees to say we need 33 for this or whatever they might need, right?
Yeah, but what he's saying is, if we're gonna get it, if we need it, let's say we think we're gonna need it for May. He's saying, let them know more closer to February, so that if there's a large amount, the funds can be moved around easier, and
So
we're not losing money by selling
So
stocks.
Claudine just asked the
Can
question.
you make sure, sorry?
Yeah, so without going into the struggles of the trust funds, with interest rates going up and being able to, rather than get 1/4% on your money, and it makes no sense to take the risk and invest that money for 2 years or 5 years and get no additional interest. Now that interest rates are anywhere from 3, if you want to buy a corporate bond, 5%. They're now investing the money out at 2 and 4 and 5 years. So if you come in and say, we need, $200,000 next month, that investment might have to be sold at a loss.
I don't know how the trust funds work. I never have understood them, so I can't.
So all you have to understand is if you're planning on spending money over the next several months or a year, to let us know that, so that we can begin to tell these guys, well, look, we're gonna need some money, and they will then handle it from there, so we're not calling up on the phone and saying, look, I need $200,000 next week.
Yeah, and I would guess, and I don't know, I would guess that because that could happen at any time, not, I mean, we're doing budget period time and we have time there, but I'm assuming that somewhere in your accounting, there's a cash available. You must leave something out there, even if it's at 1 or 2%, that in case it was needed. I mean, God forbid the roof collapses and we need $200,000, you'd have to go sell it at that point, but I'm assuming you have.
So 2% of $4 million is $80 grand,
Right,
not 200. That's my point.
right, oh, I understand, but I would guess too.
$35,000 isn't a problem at all. You start to talk 100, 200.
Oh, okay, big numbers, yeah.
Yeah, which is what we need to talk about.
So I just want to make sure we capture this, because I think this is an important point. Sorry.
No,
I'm
I'm laughing at myself. Come on.
We want to make sure that if anyone's looking to take money out of any of the funds that are managed by the trustees, that they be notified in a timely manner, so that if money needs to be removed from an investment account, that it's done so with the advantage to the town. Okay. All right. Yeah,
That's the point.
yeah,
That's
right.
exactly what you're at.
Yep.
That's exactly the point.
So I have a question about the line under planning board.
Thank you.
The planning board item for 2025 for $54,000 for a new community master plan is in conflict with what we've got on the budget for $30,000 in 2025, and we're hoping $30,000 in 2026. Can they revise that so that it looks better? Or
Yes.
reflect accurate?
Yes.
We can rewrite it. We've made it 30,000, so
Well,
we can rewrite it.
In the
30,000.
CIP, yes, we're asking to go back and revise it so
Okay.
that it looks a little
Yeah,
better.
that's what I have to ask the question, whether it has to stay in, because that's what it was for, this year or next year, or can these items be moved around,
Okay.
Right, and it's, they're looking for the money for this year, and I think it's how it goes in the budget or whether it goes into a warrant article is how it's supposed to go through the budget process. And we decided go 30 and 30, and that's how,
Yeah.
when we talked to the planning board chair. Anything
since we're on buildings and grounds, on the first page here, it mentions,
Yep, we haven't started.
well, it's a capital expenditure, that's why I'm bringing it up.
Okay.
It mentions a new mower for 24,000. Should that be, would that come under vehicle replacement? Under building, under highway department, or would that be considered a vehicle?
That's equipment.
Equipment.
So vehicles, a truck or a car, a plow, right?
Yeah,
Whereas that stuff,
I just wasn't sure if it should be in the CIP or not, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah. And I think it's,
probably should have been.
yeah,
possibly, yeah,
But that wasn't $24,000.
no,
it's 18,
it's 18.
but give or
Yeah,
take.
yeah, it's
It's still,
fuzzy math.
alright,
Hey, can I ask one final question?
you can ask as many questions as you
Well,
would
I'll
like.
stick to one, at least.
That's all you're allowed, that's all you're allowed.
So, on the 2026, the Kingston Community Library improvement, is the town gonna bear that 1.6 million?
So, I have actually talked to the librarian, and she's hoping to have a matching grant for 800,000 and fundraise for the next year and a few months for the rest of that 800,000 and get additional grants to match that money. It is something that if she doesn't raise that, she could, because she has applied for a grant, I think she's already received it, that she would need to put in some type of warrant article for what they are planning at the library.
She would need the vote of the trustees,
Yeah.
and I don't think that's something we should worry. I don't think that this. I'd be surprised if the library trustees would have looked at the taxpayers to fund, the real estate taxpayers, to fund what is in effect an improvement to the grounds, which is greatly going to enhance the enjoyment of the community, but the whole focus, they've set up a private foundation. In addition to the Friends of the Library, beyond that, to raise this money, so I don't think this is something that at least the current trustees will be looking to taxpayers to fund.
And I think that's the conversation I had from her, but it's in the capital. Are we good? Okay. All right. Department budget review. Government buildings is up first. Line item 4194. Is there, I mean, we did have that first question about the mower, correct?
So my understanding about the air quality testing is that really isn't testing, right, Tom?
Correct. It's more of a maintenance on the ductwork, and it's duct cleaning is what it essentially is, and that's, we stuck it in that line because I think it really should be a separate line, or included in the heat and service line, because that also should be repairs, service, contracts, and the heat. So that is a little fuzzy there in that line. I agree with that.
Is that something that,
We were gonna change the name and maintenance.
air quality testing and maintenance?
Because it's testing, it's maintaining the air quality in the buildings, that's what it's. He's cleaning out the
He's
ducts.
cleaning out the heating and air conditioning ducts.
And it just seems to be, it would be more transparent if there was a separate line I mean, and then the following year, that would be a dollar, a placeholder line. This isn't something that needs to be done every year to every building, but it definitely needs to be done on a regular basis. And this is just a guess, perhaps every 7 years, 8 years to each building. Could be 5, depending on,
Right, so this should be like, almost on a schedule.
yes.
Can you
So
set up a schedule?
you could, but
Currently, the buildings,
currently,
they
they're
haven't been done in a very long time.
a very long time. We've done this building probably 5 years ago. After the air quality test line came about 7 or 8 years ago, or maybe I'm just guessing, for an air quality test. And we didn't have the line. We put it in because we'd had to do it over several years for this building. And then it just sits. And it needs to, that 2,200, in my opinion, could be $1, but it shouldn't disappear. The air quality test, especially with tight buildings, we're building the fire station, the library is a very tight building, and air quality in there is probably more of a factor than air quality in this building. It tested fine, but there are occasions where people's health is fairly important. So
you're saying that none of this has been utilized over the past 3 years?
over the past 3 years.
Okay.
But I would suggest that, in my eyes, I think going forward, that could be, if the line remains the same without adding the ductwork, it should be $1.
What's the ductwork cost?
The ductwork, roughly, each building's different. The two buildings, the police and the library together, just under 10,000. It's about 9,800 was the quote. That was the cheapest we got, all the way up to 20. So
when I went through this, I didn't notice that the heat line item is also, is titled heat and maintenance?
heat and service?
Heat and service.
Yeah, the service contracts for the building, for the buildings is included in that. And it's not broken down.
So is the heat?
The heat, fuel for,
So why would you combine maintenance with fuel?
I'm agreeing with you. I think, when I looked at it, I said, and I had the same questions. But, I mean, I do like to disrupt occasionally, but a month in, I'm reading. So I would think, like, in my mind, that heat line, and then you'd have, and I'm sure this isn't how it works, but subcategories, duct cleaning, service contract, because it's for the whole town.
Yeah. Is that something that we can?
I can do that.
That sounds like it makes much more sense.
I mean, it's just clear,
Yeah, it is.
Do we
because
have any
I
other?
still scratch my head and go, which line did that come out of? And,
Plus, if
you know,
you keep your fuel in its own line item, it's much easier to manage because you're at the mercy of international markets on that. So if you know that the petroleum and natural gas is predicted to go up 25%, you can isolate that and
That
look at
line,
that and
yeah.
manage that and address that.
That
and then
individual
your
line,
maintenance
yeah.
stuff should just be in its own
a separate
line item.
category.
Claudia, were you gonna?
Are there any other contracts, Tom? Like the monitoring, is that a contract,
Ye-
$7,300?
Yeah,
item?
that's the fire and alarm monitoring.
Right. Should we have a line item for town building contracts, service contracts, whether they're for?
No, because that's, monitoring is alarms. So
Right.
so there's contracts for all different things, and they
Okay.
fall
Yeah.
under the line.
So, so are we recommending or requesting that we separate out the air quality testing and the duct work cleaning. Is that what I'm gathering?
Does that make sense to you, Tom?
It does, I mean, it does.
And then,
And they leave that at $1.
and leave the air quality at $1.
Yeah.
Just leave, that should be there forever, so that
If
it's
it's
looked at
required.
every year.
Yep.
Yep,
Because it could become a problem,
yep,
Exactly.
and then,
this ductwork.
Then change the heating as well.
and then air quality and then duct cleaning would stay at $10,000 for those two buildings. And then under heat and service, we would separate it to fuel and maintenance of heating systems.
Good with that?
So much more sense.
Yeah, and just to finish up my thought on, because some of this service is, well, I think she's made a note on it, but the service contract and the heat are combined, so I looked at, okay, we're paying this, and this, and then if you go up to fixture repair, that was my other head-scratching moment, because the lion's share of that, well, at least $4,000 to $5,000 was due to a repair at the library.
Right.
So I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think we increased that line to accept that, to take that, because the service contract is a service contract, but you never know, there's so many units that things go wrong with, and they're all expensive. So I think we added 5,000, if I'm not mistaken,
Which one, the heat?
to the heat and service
Yes.
line. And that was due to that 5,000
That
over
was
in the fixture repair.
That should have maybe been in the heat and service.
Right, so,
Okay, so, is there a motion based on this? I just want to make sure we have. Motion to separate out to, okay, so this is a big motion. Two motions, let's do the air quality first. Air quality, motion for $1 for air quality testing and $10,000 for duct cleaning.
Yes.
Second,
Here.
so Mark and Claudine, all those in any further discussion over air quality and duct cleaning? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, all in favor, to separate those lines out. And so that, we're just separating it out for
Right.
easier tracking?
yep,
Just one question, are we ever gonna have an expense in air quality testing? Or is that just gonna be $1 for the future year?
yes, see, I think along with, when we did this building, if I remember right, it was around $1,900. We did it upon there was
Employee
potential,
Yep.
requests that, hey, they're in, so.
Right,
But even if there wasn't, I don't see that in a yearly event, but that building's been up and running, the new library, for over 10, 12 years, and it's a very tight building. I wouldn't be opposed to, because you have a large number of people going in there, just to say, hey, this is an easy year, the budget's not, there's not a lot of need, let's put 2,000 back in, or get the number before, and present it. And I think I could justify that, because health is health, and that's part of being proactive.
So my only question about taking this down to $1 is that it is air quality testing. We are going to be replacing heating systems in this building. Is there going to be a need for that next year once that happens? Or is that or will that be part of the heating contract to verify balancing?
Typically, it isn't, because those are two separate, there's engineering firms that just do air quality testing, and that's who we used, and if I had to, my own opinion, if you were gonna redo this building, I would say, no, this would be the last on the list to get air quality test because of, you know, the ductwork's coming out. You're starting from brand new.
Okay, I just
have a question. In light of the construction work out front, all the installation improvements that have been done inside, I think it would make sense to do an air quality test 3 or 4 months down the road, just to make sure everything's copacetic with the improvements.
Yeah, we've had spray foam done in here. We've had, and you know, that's a valid point. I mean, it makes sense.
And I think that makes sense, but I'm also thinking that they are gonna replace, I mean, hopefully, they are gonna replace all the heating systems, so all the ductwork, if he's saying all the ductwork's gonna come out, then you're not gonna have all that dust and build up in the system. Are we okay with leaving it at $1 for now? Yes? All right, so that's, the next item we discussed was heat and service and separating them out to fuel and then maintenance and service, is that correct?
That makes sense, Tom.
That makes sense.
That's
All right.
to restrict the original line, -09, to reflect only fuel costs.
Only fuel costs, and create a new line that's going to be for services. Do we know those numbers?
I don't know them off the top of my head. I have it written out, but.
Yeah.
Yep, okay, so is that the motion, Clyde?
Yes.
Okay,
It would still total what it is now.
yep. that's-
Right.
That's, yeah.
Yep. Is there a second to separate? All right, any further discussion on separating those two items out for budgeting purposes? All right, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstention?
Just one quick question, do we have any idea what the maintenance and service line is going to be afterwards? If it's 35 total for the two,
So
are we talking 25 and 10?
I asked Paula, she doesn't
Oh, I
have
thought
those
she was
numbers.
talking about actually year-to-date numbers.
No.
No.
For 35. So she'll break those out, and when we get an updated budget for next Wednesday, we should have those numbers.
Thanks.
But those totals should be
Yeah.
35,000. All right,
The year-to-date though will stay the way it is because it's not broken out. This is for the future.
yep,
Right, and year-to-date is fuel only.
the year-to-date will be both,
Yeah.
because you can't separate it out until
Gotcha.
next year, when we put in the new budget. All right. Are there any other questions for item number 4194, government buildings?
Tom, what was the big jump in fire equipment?
Let's see. Which one is this?
It's under fertilizer.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay. Yes, that is because we decided as a town we wanted a new fire station. And that includes a sprinkler system, and they also have the main pump down there. So it's, that line covers annual inspections of all buildings for not just fire extinguishers, that's a line. The lion's share of that is the sprinkler systems in the buildings, the Nichols, this building, the fire station, and the pump. And that's why that jumped.
And the only other On the, paper and cleaning supplies.
Yeah, that's
seems to
another
have
one.
gone over in the last couple of years.
Well-
And you've got it up by $2,000. What is,
Yeah, that's another one that needs to be discussed, because,
assuming a lot of that might be just the carpet cleaning,
yes, it is. And that's why I think there should be, again, in my mind, it doesn't, carpet cleaning doesn't belong in that line. But, years ago, we did the numbers were less. The library added quite a chunk to that carpet cleaning line, and there was no line to put it in. And that's where it ended up. So I said to myself, wouldn't it make sense to, paper and cleaning supplies is what we supply the buildings with, the paper towels, the cleaning supplies, makes sense. And then have a separate line, I don't want to make life difficult, but there should be a contracted services perhaps, and that could be explained to go, oh yeah, we needed a carpet cleaner. Because I'd say, I don't have the number off the top of my head, I'm gonna guess 5,000 is carpet cleaning.
Is this something that would help you easier, separating it out, easier with budgeting?
We
Well,
already talked about separating.
It just kind of makes sense, it makes sense,
After we email.
Yeah.
All right, so
I don't know.
We need a motion to do that?
let's do it. All right.
And-
So this is a motion to separate carpet cleaning to its own.
Yeah, I think it would make more sense.
Yep.
And logical, because that much money of paper supplies doesn't make sense.
Right. And,
Paper
Lysol wipes.
yeah,
and paper towels.
I mean, that, we spend quite a hunk as it is, but then you look and you go,
Yeah.
that's impossible. That caught my eye too, and I
Yeah.
said,
All right, so all those in favor of separating out carpet cleaning from the paper and cleaning supplies? Aye. Opposed? No? All right, all in favor of separating that out. Obviously, that number will remain the same, it will just get separated for easier trending. All right. All right, any other questions about government buildings?
On the utilities, it's at 25, which is what has been the last 3 years budgeted. But for, this year it's not up to date, but the other 2 years leading to that too. It's less. New than the study that we did.
That was a couple of years ago, right? So I think some of these numbers are partly reflective of the improvements
LED
that were made
improvements.
to the light bulbs. So it's utilities electric, so my guess is that that is reflective in all the new lights that were put in,
Electric bills.
the electric
Yep.
bills, so,
Yep.
when were they finished?
that was last year?
Was it last year or this year?
The beginning,
It was the
I
beginning.
remember, I think it was the beginning of this year.
Okay, so we probably have seen the reduction.
I will double check my spreadsheet that I have, but can't, it's not all the government buildings in this utility, it's, I think it's the,
This building,
Hold on.
this building is?
The Nichols, the Town Hall, and the Rec.
is it town hall?
That's-
I thought
yeah.
town hall electric was under executive, but.
So those are, so it's the Nichols, Town Hall, and the Rec are considered the government
Government
buildings.
buildings.
All of those have,
But I've been doing a trend analysis for the electric, so I'll double
is
check
it,
that.
is this, are you suggesting we should reduce it? Because,
Possibly if there's the evidence on the spreadsheet to show that our costs are down.
okay, so we're gonna do action item. If you could send that to me, Paula, so I can distribute that analysis. And then we will revisit reducing that number, prior to closing out the budget.
Mhm.
Right. Alright, highway department, 4312.
Sorry.
Are there any,
Can't take me anywhere.
are there any questions or concerns on the highway department?
The electricity line, speaking of that, Paula recommends that it should be 7,200. Do we need to?
Is that in your spreadsheet as well? Alright.
So you'll see that.
Yep,
So we're gonna change that to 7,200.
it's being recommended to be 7,200, but she has a trend analysis she'll send to us, and once we receive that, we'll take a look at it.
The cold patch, why did that go down so significantly?
Basically, we don't use it at all anymore. We've got a hot box from the town of Exeter, which is hot mix. So instead of that sticky cold patch, we use the hot mix. But in the winter, we kept the line available because in the winter, if you need to patch, it's very difficult for hot mix, so just to have some on hand.
Any other questions about the highway department budget?
What account number do you want?
We're still 4312.
Yeah.
What about the salary for the director?
So currently, the interim DPW director is being,
Right, I understand it.
but we moved that salary into the salaries full-time a couple years ago,
Okay,
which is why it's zeroed out, and once we get out far enough, we will no longer see that line.
thanks, I can find that.
It's okay. Any other questions or concerns? I'm gonna move on to street lighting. All right. 4316, street lighting. It has been reduced by 20%, and that's probably due to all the LED lights being put in.
Yep, and there were some removal of lights that
Yep,
really didn't need to be.
probably. Probably about right for next year with the increase in power prices.
The 20.
Yeah,
Yeah, because this doesn't include, I just got the November bill in,
Yeah.
so it's November, it doesn't include
November and December, so, yeah, so if you take the 10, you say it's about 1,600 a month, add another 3,600, 4,000, you're about $20,000. Any questions on street lighting? All right. Line item 4319, other highways, streets, and bridges.
Yeah,
So
it's up $1 million, right?
yeah. So, let me see if I can try to explain this, because I've done a lot of research on this, because we've gone over budget for it appears that we have gone over budget for 2 years in a row. So, this highway block grant and the bridge grant are line items that we use when we're using the highway bridge grant and the highway block grant and the bridge grant, that we get information on in December of the year about how much we're gonna get for either state funding, correct?
Just for the highway.
Just for the highway. And the bridge grant, we have to apply,
Yeah.
and we won't find out until sometimes next year. So what happens is when we get these grants, we can keep the money, and if we don't use it, roll it over to the following year. What it appears is that even though we've had that revenue, the budget hasn't actually appropriated all the money available to use, even though none of that money is taxpayer money. It's just the bucket that we appropriate for use in the next year. So if we're looking at the highway block grant, which right now we look for next year in the revenue, it should be reflective. I think we know our number, and it's 175,118.11. So we should actually update the revenue page for that. We haven't done that yet.
I did.
It's, oh, not on. It's okay, but we should, because the revenue still says 260,000. But the number that should be proposed should be what we're estimated to get next year, plus the remainder of what we have from that fund that we can keep and use for the following year. And if I did my whole calculation, that line item should be about $240,000 for next year.
We came up with the 170.
But that's what we're getting next year, correct?
No, that's what is available to use,
And,
right?
and yes, that's what I understood. And to complicate matters further, the fiscal year for that grant money is July to July.
Correct.
So that's, and I can't speak to
There
it.
wasn't much left after this year.
Correct.
So, and then,
When we're talking about funds and we're saying money is left, where is it left?
It's, so
Where
it,
is it?
on
in the
paper, we
general
keep
fund.
track- Yes.
So we get the block grant, and it comes in and it gets put into,
Okay, so I'm a simple man, we get a block grant, we get a check?
Quarterly.
yep,
So we deposit the check in the bank, that's the debit, what's the credit?
When we repair the roads.
No, when you put the money in the account,
The
you
revenue.
debit cash.
The revenue
What is the
line.
credit?
The revenue line.
So the revenue line, so all of that money, when you close the books once a year, flows into the bottom.
but it can only
How
be
much
used,
money-
it can only be used for road repair.
No, that's not what, then it wasn't just explained right. Then I didn't understand what was just said. So we get the money in, we debit credit revenue, but we really shouldn't be crediting revenue because we have an obligation.
Right. It's a liability.
How much is that, how many years is that? We take
It
that
can
money,
be carried forever.
it's not carried if we close it into the books, into the bottom and give it to the taxpayer or spend it on something else.
From what I,
It's in your balance sheet accounts.
That's right, exactly, that's the point, you should I don't know what you should do.
I honestly, this is how it's been for way before me, and it continued, so.
Yeah. And I think we talked about this earlier this year when we were reviewing the revenues and how at the end of the year, we have, last year we were 100,000 over on that line that was spent and the line item. So I did a little research into this because I was like, how can we be a couple 100,000 over in a line item? And then it was explained to me that the highway block grant comes in on a quarterly basis. We get a check. That money comes in, it's to be used for road repair.
And we don't use it for road repair that year.
Then we keep it and we can use it the following year for road repair.
But when you say we keep it, where do we keep it? Where is it kept? What account?
In the general fund, and we
In
hold a
what
separate
account?
spreadsheet that we keep track of all the ins and outs.
We don't
So
keep
we
any.
have a running balance.
But at the end of the year, when you close out your revenue and expense account, does that account get closed out with all the others?
Yes.
So that's a problem.
I agree.
That's a problem. Okay, and this stuff isn't, I know it's very complicated, but it's not being explained clearly. And what I'm worried about is I'm now looking at $1 million increase in this total account. I know only about what, 870 of it is this. This is an accumulation of $870,000 of monies that we've received over the years and not spent in those years.
No.
Okay.
The 800 is the FEMA grant for the bridge.
Okay.
It's a new grant. It's,
So-
that's different, it's completely different.
So it's 567,000?
No,
Well, 867 minus 300 is 567. You said you're getting a new grant for 300,000, okay.
Oh, she didn't give a number.
I thought you said there's a FEMA grant for 300,000.
no,
There's-
FEMA grant for the bridge,
there's-
that's the 800,000.
Yeah.
Of which 10% is our obligation.
Which we've
Right.
already.
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
So,
But can you understand for the average, I mean, if we're
Yeah.
struggling with
Yeah.
these numbers,
And-
the average citizen isn't gonna get it. I mean, if you look at the highway block grant, it looks like we're almost $250,000 over the budgeted amount.
I'll
Yes.
just,
I agree.
just as an average citizen, I looked at it and I go, what? And slowly I've been getting there. And that once, what's in front of me, I separate them. A highway block grant, I saw what comes in, what's coming in, and I didn't do the math. She did the math. Okay, 175, we have to show that. Now that means, to me, at the end of the year, if we spent 150 of that 25 can roll over and should reflect in next year's, that's what you're saying.
yeah.
Now, where it sits, I was under the assumption that, because it didn't, I think I asked the question, probably not of the right, didn't ask the right person, but I said, where's it go? To me, if it's a grant, that should be in, like I have my grandson's bank account, that's his money, that goes over there. And then it doesn't get mixed up with the general fund, because you really can't use it for anything else.
Except for highway.
Now, then I went on to, like, when you go, oh, we gotta put this here, this 800 and whatever. Now, that's been going on for 2 years, that grant. And it's a 10% match. It still hasn't been awarded. That's a risk the town took, basically, in my eyes. We paid the 10%. It's going forward. We do cross all our Ts, dot all our Is. That money should show up this year if FEMA's, if the ball rolls. So there's that 800,000 that's gonna be used on bridge grants alone. And probably for the next foreseeable future, that bridge grant will be nothing. But you'll always have that highway block grant. The question is, because it confused me when I looked, I go, how'd we spend 433, you know, and where? So that's from a simple guy, so.
So reality, John, is that an account possibly would be set up with the trustees of the trust fund, rather than having that particular money go to the general fund, so that one is a separate account to be drawn off of, but two could be getting a lot more money with you guys than it is sitting in the town's account for 6 months.
But it's not sitting in the town's account.
No, it's not in the trust funds, it doesn't go in the trust
I
funds.
understand it.
He knows it's not.
I'm saying, why couldn't we establish
Because you wouldn't invest it.
So it would be just in the balance sheet,
So why isn't it in the balance sheet?
because this is, I don't know. It's from way
So
before.
Thank you.
So,
It's way
Thank
before
you.
me, I agree it should be in
So
the
this
balance
is a
sheet.
problem, because there's
It
something that
never
you
was.
said that I don't know if this is true. So I hope we do know the answer to this question. The total here is $3.6 million. Last year it was 2.6 million for the budget, the total, on the bottom of page 2. So that's an additional $1 million that has to be raised from the real estate taxpayer this year.
So,
Right.
but no, so I think this is, that's talking about setting tax rate, right? So when we set the tax rate, we take the operating budget plus the revenue, plus any additional funds that are coming into the town from, what is it, the overlay account and other things. So there's a process that the tax rate goes through to calculate it out. So if you're looking at that 3.6,
Yes.
we need to also look at the revenue sheet that we've been talking about previously, and if you look at the revenue sheet on the proposed budget, we have an estimated revenue out of total income, and there is a line that says highway block grant for estimated revenue. So that would not be raised from taxpayers any money.
Let's talk about the bridge grant.
Yeah.
What are we getting for income for the bridge grant next year?
What was it, 800?
867 is,
867. What's that one?
Which line number?
The highway block grant?
For the, in the revenue?
The bridge one. I see the highway.
but
It's the one underneath.
We
just,
haven't put it in yet because it hasn't been finalized. We're still waiting on, they were waiting to send us information.
Who's that?
The government,
FEMA.
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 I thought this was the government. Okay,
FEMA.
Yeah,
It's, and my concern is,
so I haven't put it in revenues yet,
yeah,
but it's
You
going,
haven't put it in revenue yet?
no, but it's going to be. It hasn't been finalized yet.
Let me ask a question. Why don't we borrow this money from the bank and not raise it from the taxpayer? And then when we get the reimbursement, pay it back, and then we'll only ask the taxpayer to put up the interest.
We're not asking the taxpayer.
We're not going to, it'll be in the revenue before the end of the, we haven't gotten the information back from FEMA yet.
So,
They are giving us a grant of, I think it was, I don't have it in front of me, so I'm gonna say the wrong number, but it's about 900 some
Okay.
odd $1,000.
Even for 700, whatever it
And
is.
we have to come up with 10%, which we've already spent over the years on the
Two.
bridge.
2 years.
And so the remainder of what they will give us is $867,834. That will, once we get final numbers from FEMA, that will go also in revenue, so it'll be a complete offset. It'll be in revenue and in expenses.
so I have a question, Ben. If we're not putting it in revenue, should we even put it in the budget? Because if we don't get.
We'll put it in revenue, I just haven't yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
because what I'm saying is if
Right.
we're not gonna get it, then we're not gonna spend it.
It's going in revenue within this budget year. Well, 2025.
And
So if we took this, I mean, right now, the total budget percent is like 9%, and that's really not acceptable, in my opinion. So, but if we figure out the percentage of this $867,000 out of the total budget, you know, as we're going to, we gotta explain this at some point. We gotta tell people that, you know, $900,000 of this is the, as we've been trying to do in the black grant. So the actual, whatever our percentage might be, 4% or 5%, whatever the difference is between the two. But we're really gonna, if it stays the way it is, you know, it's gotta be, we've gotta educate the people to it, because that, you know.
Right,
It's like
there's a
the
difference
poll
It's not
between,
by educating the budget committee, because I've immersed myself in this type of stuff all my life. I mean, you know my background. My cousins are probably sitting home watching this, ready to blow their brains out. Since they were just down here this week on Monday, paying tax bills. I mean,
It's like the poet system last year with the $288,000, the
And-
exact same
and-
situation.
And I think to your line of questioning, and I was just gonna interject this, and this is beyond me to figure out, but my concern would be that we're dealing with FEMA on a grant we hope will be signed next week, next year, next month, but what if it isn't? Because this has been going on since 2022. You know, they're moving fairly quickly. 2.5 years. So, and that's just my question. Until it's, if it was signed over here, then I go, hey, look, they signed it, you guys figure it out. Or those what call
So let me ask a dumb question.
but it's not signed.
What is this even funding? Like in the real world,
The Main Street
Main
Bridge.
Street Bridge
how
repairs.
important is that?
Um,
That's an honest question.
and I don't have the answer to that.
So
I think at one point, of course, they call it a bridge, we call it, you know, cul-de-sac under
Yes.
the road, they call it
Yeah.
a bridge, I never could understand
Right.
that either. But I think it was on the
It-
red list at some point.
it
The state
was.
comes down with a red list of dams and bridges and
Yeah.
things that need to be replaced in a period of time.
Okay,
And as I recall,
well, that's answered my question.
that was, I think
Yeah.
that was on the red list. And we weren't gonna do it if we didn't get the grants, obviously,
Right.
until it caved in, I suppose, but.
And it's been, I think, 2 years in the making. It's 2-3 years, the process is. But that was my only concern is nothing signed.
So believe it or not, when somebody tells me, an authority, they don't know, I feel better. But we have to know, and you have to come in and be able to present in a very comprehensive way in about 90 seconds what the story is with this, or I'm never gonna vote for it. Okay, that isn't meant to be an attack, critical of you at all, but I mean, I was a CPA before I went to law school and spent 22 years in government finance, and like my head was spinning here listening to this. It makes no sense to me. So, look, in other words, we have time, but we really need to understand this. And do we really have to put this, do we really have to tax the homeowner for this in full now? And I don't know the answer to that.
So I think what I would like to recommend is that we get it, all the information about it, what the revenue is, and then show how the tax rate is calculated using the operation and the revenue, because I think there's some confusion on what is in the operational budget and how much the taxpayer gets taxed. Because this operational budget just doesn't go over and get
I understand.
under-taxed. And I think if we can have an example of that for the, not the fire station, but for the executive budget, is that,
Yeah, but it was your questions that has discovered it's supposed to be, it's not in revenue now.
Correct.
Right? So
Right.
that, we need
No,
to
I know.
resolve that. It's December, that needs to be resolved.
we need to resolve it quickly, because in 30 days from now, we have to vote on the budget.
The other problem is though, if we don't appropriate the money and we get the grant in February, then we can't spend that grant money.
Well,
And that's what we're trying to go be ahead of ourselves, because we know it's coming in 2025.
so I don't know the answer to this, because while I have some experience, it's not in the state, and the rules are a lot different, particularly in these intricate areas. But if I were to drive 15 miles and had this problem, and in February I was faced with quandary that you just presented me, I'd go to the city council or to the selectmen or a special town meeting and ask for authorization to borrow the money, spend the money, and that won't go on the tax rate. They don't really care whether you raise it from taxes, they just want to know that you spent the money.
So,
Right,
so
but we
in,
can't spend money
We
that's
can't
not.
in the
it's not
budget.
So even if the money comes in,
Can you
John,
borrow the money?
it doesn't, if it's not
Why?
on here, we can't spend it.
Yeah.
That's the tenet of this whole thing. If it's not on the budget,
You have to raise it,
Not right.
you have to appropriate the money.
if,
How do you build schools, though? How do you build a $40 million school if it's not on a budget? You borrow it. Yeah, exactly. I'm just saying you borrow it for a year, borrow it for 6 months.
so,
But it still has to.
so then it would still be a bond, and it would have to go to the voters to bond it.
Okay,
And that would
That's
have to
the issue.
happen, and that would have to happen in March.
okay.
This way, we have applied for the grant, we think we're getting for the grant, In order for us to spend any money, it has to be in the budget appropriated for us to spend it in the next cycle year.
Just like last year with the, or this year actually, with the POET system, we had to put 288,000 in our budget, and in this case, we got the grant in, I think, December, but 288,000 went into revenue as well. So it completely offsets.
But we wanna make sure that's,
But my point is this, the taxpayers had to they had to write checks out of their accounts to come up with that 288 grand. The fact that
No, because when the tax rate is being set,
Yeah.
the revenues are estimated, and so the revenues and the budget numbers get put together, plus other numbers that we get from various state things, and then.
I'm gonna ask her to put a tax rate sheet for us so we can understand
I
it.
think we had
Yep.
done it, but I'll do it.
We're gonna do it again, we'll do it for
I'll print
the
out.
executive meeting. I think it will help everyone understand the process.
So theoretically, if this was in the budget, that there was gonna be $867,000 spent on this culvert bridge on Main Street, and we're expecting the FEMA grant. If the FEMA grant didn't come through, the town wouldn't spend that money, right?
Correct. Correct.
So in the following year. So the taxpayers are never going to be out this grant money under any circumstances
Right,
without being reimbursed by FEMA.
but the bottom line.
But we have to figure out how this gets in paperwork wise.
Right.
In
But
addition,
for taxpayers.
the bottom line right now, the budget's like $10.5 million. That is never gonna, maybe I'm being devil's advocate, that's never gonna be approved.
But the tax implication, that other number that's calculated, is going to reflect the revenue we're getting in.
Right.
So if we have to, like, and if we went to default and we went back to the $9.4 million, then we would not have the appropriations to actually get that grant money. And even if we were awarded that grant, if the requirements were to spend it in 2025, we would not be able to accept the grant money because it was not appropriated in our budget.
Exactly.
And that is something we have to make people understand, that even though this is $10 million, $1 million of it is money that we are getting from the state, from FEMA, and that we will not spend that money unless we get that money.
Right.
I understand. The thing is, one needs to have a lot of credibility and the faith of the people in you in order for them to buy into that argument. That's the key to that. You can say that. That can be said. I don't mean you.
Right.
That can be said, but it has to be said by people in a manner that people have faith.
Right, so we have to come up with a good presentation for January to, when we go to these meetings and state, we are looking for grants, this is what we're looking for. These are the RSAs that we are required to follow when we have them, and we can state that. And I think that is what we need to present to the people.
Yeah, we're gonna do that.
We're all in trouble. Normally, the budget committee chair will give a presentation at the January 11th meeting about the budget and all the work we've done and the evaluation, and then the following week we'll sit with the select board and go through the warrant articles, and the chair of the select board will talk about the different warrant articles, and we'll talk about the budget meeting. That will happen the first 2 weeks of January. So
What's the budget? Is that warrant article 2?
we don't know what number it
It's
is.
after whatever.
It's after whatever planning board gets.
Yeah. So typically it says it's got the bulk number,
The bulk number, and then
10.6 for all intents and purposes, and the tax impact.
right,
And I think that's all townspeople.
yeah,
They see those two numbers.
yep.
And I'll have the tax impact, like I could do that in a second. If I use whatever the budget is right now.
Right.
So
I could get the.
I think for the December 18th, let's have that tax impact number for us for next year. Remember, that's not gonna be set in April, it'll be set in November,
Right, exactly.
if we could do that. And we'll have it, and we'll have a further discussion about grants at that meeting and revenue. We'll make sure we have a further discussion of revenue, because currently the revenue does not reflect that. All right. Are we good? Okay. Oh, look it. Are we good with grants? Because we have one more.
Yeah, sanitation.
We have sanitation left.
We have.
Are there any questions about item number 4323, sanitation?
Did we change our recycling that we don't collect cardboard anymore?
Okay, so
There's been some
would, would you like me to answer that question? Do you want to? Okay. All right, so, we collect at the collection center cardboard and glass, and to take it out of the recycling stream, because the recycling stream is currently costing us $141 and change a ton to recycle. Trash is costing us $86.10 to haul out. So as a cost-saving measure, the solid waste and recycling started a collection center to take some of the heaviest items out of the collection stream to reduce our costs for tonnage for recycling. So the town has asked, if you want to bring your cardboard to the collection center, please do, because it will save us money, and it has reduced the tonnage of recycling to date in the last year. And to bring your glass. If you're not going to bring your glass to the recycling center, to throw it in the trash, because Waste Management doesn't actually recycle the glass, it takes it out, charges us to take it out, and they use it for road fill in their landfill. So right now that we do recycle cardboard, if you want, you can put it in your recycling bin. That has not stopped. The Waste Management will pick up your cardboard. If you would like to bring it to the collection center on this Saturday, because we just had recycling, the recycling center will be open from 9 a.m. to 12, where there'll be volunteers collecting your cardboard and glass and other things. Scrap metal, yeah, I got that. So those are the things that they're doing to try to reduce costs to the taxpayer, because we did get a contract that we have 3 more years of that is not favorable to the town.
Our surrounding towns are using Casella, and they're not screwed nearly as bad. 3 years, we have 3 more years with them?
Yes.
Do they want to have renew the contract in 3 years, do you know?
Probably. They do, but I believe if none of you were, some of you were present at the presentation that was done on Monday night.
Watched it.
I know you did. They are proposing to not continue with curbside recycling for the next contract, and they would like to put an RFP, one of those documents, out early next year to talk to other trash companies, because if we go with someone other than Waste Management, it takes 18 months to get a truck ordered and delivered. So best case scenario, 18 months to get a truck ordered and delivered so that they can actually pick up our trash and recycling.
So we would be putting together a RFP for both trash and recycling.
No. The vote the select board had on Monday night is to move forward only with curbside trash, and that
After 3 years.
after the 3 years, and that recycling would no longer be curbside, and that they would come up with a business case for either continuing the recycling center or putting recycling in the trash. Is kind of where we're at. But I mean, I think they're trying to build out a recycling center and put that business case together for that at this time. Did I cover it? Okay. All right.
So let me ask you this, it isn't unusual that people find themselves in bad deals, bad contracts that don't work, and one party finds himself at a tremendous disadvantage. But the other party would like, and they continue to need this service. But so sometimes what you do is you just say, look, I know this isn't working for you. You rip the contract up, and you enter into a new contract for, say, another 5 years. And so they would, you know, guarantee, because the likelihood that you're gonna go with them again at the end of 3 years is nil, right?
I think it depends on, I actually think it depends on whether or not someone can come out with a competitive trash number.
Right.
Because if you look at the amount of landfills that are currently in New Hampshire, the one up the road, up on 125, which is a waste management landfill, is the closest to Kingston.
Yep.
Anyone else would either have to use that landfill. If we got a private trash company that doesn't have their own landfill, they would be bringing it to there. Or Casella has a landfill that is someplace else that is only open for another year or two. So if they don't get an expansion license, they won't be able to give us a competitive number either. So what happens is we are stuck with a trash company that has
Better sort of the fence.
but they're gonna, that's,
But 3 years ago.
that is the situation, but we're not gonna be the only town that's gonna be facing that situation. And we need to do this statewide, because as soon as they start closing landfills, we'll need more information, additional information to where are we gonna bring our trash? Because if we close all our landfills, then we're probably gonna end up spending a lot of money to get rid of our trash, and it's gonna be freight train over to someplace in the Midwest, because those are the only places that will be accepting it for open, large landfills. And that is an ongoing issue and concern, and it should be every taxpayer, and it should be some of budget committee's concern, because it could cost us a lot more money. I mean, the contracts totals is over 5 years is close to $4 million that we're just giving them to take our trash, and the more money we work on it, the more we put into the collection center, where it's a losing battle. And the contract does have implications if we take too much away from them, that they can surcharge us for loss of profits. So, yes, yeah.
All right, I have a couple questions.
Yep, go ahead.
So on recycling disposal line, we reduced it from 141 to 94, which is a 33% decrease. Do we think the actual year-to-date of 64,000, do we think that's going anywhere? Do we think it's gonna hit 94?
So, that number was based on the recycling disposal charge and the increase in the contract. Sorry,
Okay, so that's contract.
So it's contract, so our increase, every year, our disposable increases per tonnage, so, we are guessing at this because our recycling disposal tonnage is based on a commodities market.
Right.
That changes on a monthly basis, so it could be this, it could, if the commodities market flattens and they decide they don't wanna take any plastics or whatever they're taking, it could increase, and it's based on what they get for
Okay.
tonnage.
Penalties and surcharges, $9,500, what's that? Why are we incurring penalties?
The contract,
The lion's share of that is a fuel
Fuel
surcharge.
charge.
They have another copy.
in the contract, they are allowed to give us a fuel surcharge every month. A month, and next year, depending on what the fuel was this year, we'll get a new fuel surcharge next year.
I usually get a letter that says what the monthly surcharge is.
And hazardous waste collection, are we overstating that? Looks like we've over budgeted 3 years in a row. Should we sharpen our pencils on that 18,000?
So this, I think we could, because we're not hosting it, but I think Plastow's hosting it in the spring. We are with the conglomerate, and then people can pay to go, and we have to reimburse the town.
Right, yeah, I get that.
And there's no, I mean, I think we could, because it doesn't look like we've.
What is the number? I don't have it.
It's 18,000. It's 18,000 currently, but you've only spent 3,000. Have we gotten the bill for the fall cleanup?
We just did.
Oh, you did it? I haven't received it. They
No,
got
just
it
came in
today.
today. It was over. It was over 10, oh, here you go. Yeah. She's watching. 10,000.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, so we're gonna, okay.
So I think it's.
So we just got a bill, so when somebody went to Plastow,
Yeah.
then we have to pay for our, like, they take our names.
In the year we post, it'll go up.
Yeah, right, because we hosted, that's the year we had 92,000.
But it's another one of those that gets reimbursed. It's on the budget, but we don't,
No,
Doesn't get reimbursed.
some of it,
Then the
didn't it?
92 we got reimbursed by the
Yeah,
other towns
the
that year.
23,
But
right.
the rest of, this is our per cost.
They have events,
Kingston.
so they do events.
Right, but like it was budgeted 92, but it only ended up spending by the time you get the payments from the other towns, like 23.
What is the 92?
What was budgeted for the event?
Yes, that's the year we hosted,
Yeah.
yes, we got reimbursed, yep.
but this year we won't get reimbursed because we're not hosting. So, right, we should, in the years that we host, we should see a revenue.
Right, which is kind of the same idea.
And that's gonna show
Yeah, it's
up on a
grants.
different page.
Yes.
Not this year, but
No.
when we host.
When we
Yeah.
host, it shows
Yes.
up on a separate
And-
page, yeah.
We have to figure out how to better.
Yeah.
Explain that.
Yeah. So we're comfortable leaving it 18? Or,
If it's 10,000, 13,000, we don't know what the costs are gonna be next year.
gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Tom?
Good job, Tom.
Thank you. Great job. Thank you very much.
Good job. I know you said don't feel bad, though. Thank you. That's what my mother said. I always say that.
All right. All right, public comment? Public comment. All right, other board business. So I do want to talk about a couple of things, other board business. We have 2 more budget committee meetings this year. One next week, it's at the fire station. The one following week, the 18th, is the executive budget, the budget committee budget. And then we'll wrap up some things. I have asked people if they want additional data. What do we need for additional data to evaluate the full budget? And then the other thing is we have talked about having a few departments come back to adjust their budgets. I know you had mentioned the museum coming back. We did take the police details out, and I think there was a few outstanding questions on their budget. Correct? You had said that to me last time, but is there any, so the museum, I think the museum would like to come back to talk to us and represent some things. So so we can have them come back on, we can either have them come back on December 18th or January 8th when we review the entire budget. So, I don't know, January 8th, and we'll review the entire budget, and we can have anybody that we would like to come back or discuss their budget before we do a complete review come back on January 8th. And then the budget hearing will be on January 11th. What? January 11th. And then the following week, then the, yeah. But the big budget hearing where we go line by line is January 11th. Any other, so we would like, I think it might make sense to have them come back on January 8th, because I think we have a lot to talk about on the 18th, because we're going to talk about grant process, tax rates, executive budget. That's a big chunk. I think there will be a lot of discussion.
That's December 18th.
December 18th. Yep, next week, fire station at the fire station. The following week, December 18th, in this room, executive budget committee budget. And then the executive budget includes the administration, financial, budget committee, buildings, inspectors, personnel, insurances.
And you'll have all the insurance costs in cement by then, right?
Yeah. The regular insurance is in there, it's the health.
Right.
And the due date for
Open enrollment.
I think it was next week for the employees to give me their.
I think, is the 7th the deadline for open enrollment?
I might have told them 7th, but it's really, I have till the 15th or 16th.
Right.
But I budgeted, what I did was for the new costs, I, for now, took the highest number.
Yeah,
And just said, everybody's gonna take that, and that's.
so it's a worst case scenario, right? Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right, so I think that makes sense. We'll have, did we need for the planning board to come back in? Did we have any outstanding issues with them? I don't think so, just the 30,000.
Which we made it 30,000.
Yep, I'm just,
Yeah.
all right. I don't think we have any. And then I have the funds, the balances of the funds as of 9/30/2024. If anybody would like to see the balances of the funds, those are like the infrastructure, all of those. That is probably something for us to look at. John has all that access.
And I should be getting, the November.
The November.
I think.
This is
what-
September.
I think what he did, he sent me it in November for October, but it was just September.
Okay.
It didn't include October, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
By an error. But I usually get it by the 15th
Okay.
of the month, the following
Alright.
month, so.
Yeah, so
I'll
if
send
you
it
can
to
send
you.
me the current one so that I can send it to everybody.
That is the only one I have right now.
You just have a paper copy?
Oh, I can send you the Excel spreadsheet,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you. And everyone would like to see that. Is any other data from the town we're looking for to evaluate the budget this year? Anything else? Okay. All right, any other board business? Anything else? No?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we are all set. I will tell you when we're clear. Adjourned. See you guys all next week.
Yeah, close. We have stairs. Yeah, the stair guy came and.
You get your stairs in?
Yeah, we have stairs.
That's awesome.
Solid stairs. You can't see through, but all the way to the basement, so that's good.
And they don't make that bouncy sound when you go in there?